Now it's time for Union County EDGEcast, a podcast to discuss the current economic development environment within Union County, North Carolina, the greater Charlotte area, the state of North Carolina, and beyond. During this time, Chris will discuss many topics with guests ranging from industrial leaders, important allies, and thought leaders throughout the economic development landscape. You can also find the video version of this episode on the Monroe-Union County Economic Development's YouTube channel and other social media platforms. Please know that the views, information, or opinions expressed during this podcast are solely those of the individuals involved and do not necessarily represent the policies or positions of any other agency, organization, employer, or company. Now let me introduce your host, Chris Platé, Executive Director of Monroe-Union County Economic Development.
Welcome. Today, our guest is Mr. Lee Fite, the Carolinas President for Fifth Third Bank. Welcome, Lee.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here. I appreciate you having me.
Absolutely. It's been a little bit. We had a small hiatus. We were on some vacations and other things that allowed us to enjoy some of the summer. So we're back now doing the podcast.
Great.
So you're the new one right out of the gate.
Well,
so I appreciate that.
Glad to.
So again, just to remind people what the podcast is, it's basically an opportunity for us to talk to folks in and outside the region, outside of Union County, and find out what's going on in the marketplace and eventually how that sort of plays back here in Union County and how it can help us in our recruitment and all of that.
Wonderful.
The Fifth Third has been supportive of us in the past. We have an event called the Groundhog Day Economic Summit, and you have helped us multiple times with speakers to allow that.
Yeah.
And so thank you so much for that event.
That's been one of our favorite events to support. It's always a lot of fun, very informative. You guys, you've got such a great staff and so many great businesses in this area, so we're always look forward to that.
Yeah, it's one of those things that, again, because of the size of Fifth Third, it does help us tremendously with the caliber of someone to come and help speak from the economist side and everything else.
Sure.
So it's been great.
Well, been good for us as well.
Very good, very good. Well, in this we like to sort of keep it casual, and so we'll find out what a little bit more about you personally. So where are you from?
Chris, I'm actually from Charlotte.
You're like a unicorn.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think so. Grew up in Charlotte. My father's from Charlotte, but both sides of the family are from North Carolina. We moved around the Charlotte area a bit, but it's home for me. And went off to college at Appalachian State, but moved back to Charlotte, stayed employed here, and frankly, why would you want to leave this region? It's in my opinion, it's one of the best regions in the country. So
yeah,
it's been home for a long time.
Yeah, like you, I was raised down in South Carolina in Clover, big city of Clover.
Sure,
it's
sure.
a river rat. And my whole time I was thinking, I just want to get out. I want to go somewhere else. And kept finding myself back here because it's so amazing to be. You're close to almost anything you want to be at, to go to. The mountains, the beach, the quality of entertainment in the Charlotte area is just great. And so
it's funny you say that because there have been times that I have considered working in another city. And I think one of the best things about my job and my career is I've had the opportunity to travel a lot. And so you may have a day when you're on a plane to go somewhere and you think, what a wonderful place to live.
Right.
But I've always been happy to come back home here.
Yes.
And, I'm aware of just how lucky we have it.
Yeah. Isn't that a great feeling? You're coming
is.
back on the plane, you're like, I'm glad to be home.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's nice. We do a lot of travel out west, particularly Dana. My wife's got some family out in Colorado and stuff. And the biggest thing is when you come back, it's all green. Compared to the West is brown or, sort of lack of color that we have here. There's more colors here than a Crayola box when it comes to green and stuff.
No doubt.
So you said App State?
Yes.
So they've changed a lot since you probably went. That school has turned into an amazing place.
It has. I probably couldn't get in there today. My oldest son graduated from Appalachian in the last year, and
that's hard to believe because I knew him when he was
right.
Yeah.
He's it's hard for me to believe, but gainfully employed. I did a great job preparing him. But when we go up there to see him, the buildings everywhere. There's always something under construction.
Yes.
It's like that with a lot of the colleges in North Carolina, and I don't recognize the campus much anymore. But it's interesting. There are professors that I had at that school that my son had, and they would remember me. And
wow,
that's one of the things that we talked about before when he's considering colleges. Is that's a place where people get to know you. You have personal relationships. So
it's a family.
It is. It is.
Yeah.
So it's good. It's a good place for me. It's a good place for him. I was fortunate. I went on to Wake Forest for business for a graduate program for business, and I encountered the same thing at Wake Forest.
Yeah.
And so, I think a lot of folks will take it for granted, but we have a lot of wonderful universities in the Carolinas.
That's for sure.
And whether North Carolina or South Carolina.
Right.
And so very blessed. Hard to go wrong there.
Yeah, it really is that corridor really from Atlanta almost all the way up to Washington, D.C.
Sure.
You've got pretty much anything in there. Then the caliber's off the charts.
Yeah, it's great.
Particularly in what we do, the engineering schools. From Georgia Tech all the way up to Virginia Tech,
right.
Clemson, NC State, App, UNC Charlotte. I mean, it's just we have anything we want with that.
It's
aerospace nice. to literally anything, automotive. So it's we're very, very fortunate. So when you went did you know what you wanted to do coming out of App? Did you the financial track was something that you wanted to follow, or how did you how to get into the banking side?
No, I have to be honest and tell you that's not the direction that I was thinking about at the time. Although I will tell you, I very, very vividly remember a day my freshman year. I was home in Charlotte and I was walking near downtown and looking at the central business district, and just thinking, that's a bank, that's a bank, that's a bank.
Right.
And I was just thinking about, gosh, there are a lot of banking opportunities here. And I grew up in a family that was very entrepreneurial, Chris. And so we, I knew that I wanted to do something where I had an opportunity to help people. Mm-hmm. I hadn't quite figured out what that was going to be yet. Because of the great banks and the great leaders that were already in this community. I did have the opportunity to get into banking in Charlotte, and had an opportunity to consider a couple of different options, and all of which I think were great. But it ultimately it became a way for me to marry some of my personal interests around helping in the community and building relationships with individuals. Banking has probably turned out to be the best option for me, but I wasn't aware of that coming out of college.
Yeah, it's interesting how that works out, isn't it? That we all sort of have something in mind, and then there's a plan.
Look, and I'd have to say that Appalachian prepared me for that.
Yeah,
you had a very broad-based education, and I think that I was prepared to do a lot of different things. But when you're young, you've got to figure out what's important to you,
right?
And then go tackle it.
Yeah. Well, I can't let anything go by without a shameless plug for Clemson. So
of course,
so it also shows that App State trained you very well, that you married a good Clemson girl. So that's
for years I was able to tell my wife that in recent times Appalachian was the only national champion.
That's true.
Around for football. And she reminds me now that Clemson has a couple of those, and so Chris, we fly a couple of different flags out in front of our house.
Absolutely. Well, you had mentioned sort of your family's past. My family was in banking as well. So
sure.
Father worked in South Carolina in banks. He was a regional exec up in the York County area, and so it was always interesting to hear him talk about the stories of how he helped people, that someone needed something and they were able to financially figure things out and be creative.
Sure.
But throughout his career, he always talked about all the changes in banking. So what are some of the biggest changes you've seen sort of in your tenure?
Oh my goodness. There's so many.
It's just got to be so dynamic.
Yeah, it changes all the time. Right. It really does. I can't tell you that there's ever a day that I think, it's Groundhog Day. It's not like that.
Right.
What I would say is early on, what we considered to be a large bank as I entered the industry, that'd be a small bank today, right?
Right.
And just the sheer size of banks and where they can go to serve clients.
Right.
They used to be very, very narrowly focused on a given community, and now you're able to work with your customers wherever they may be. Technology clearly is a big changer, and there's a lot that technology can do. We tend to think about it in terms of convenience, and that is a big part of it. But safety and soundness for companies, for businesses.
Explain that.
So think about talk about the underbelly of commerce. Think about in times that you'd have fraud, check fraud, for example. Today, it is so easy to move money, or you and I both know we open up an email and you don't recognize it. Where is it coming from? Money can get moved out of your account and go around the world in a matter of seconds.
Right.
We use a lot of technology to protect our clients' accounts and their information. That's a big part of it. We have clients that maybe they're around the corner, but maybe they are halfway around the world, and they still need to have access to that information in real time. How you help companies in terms of being efficient, managing their books and making decisions. Just like, I think about the iPhone, now I don't know how I got along without it before, right? Just in terms of having information access. Well, banking does that as well, providing real-time information so people can make decisions. And so those are a couple of them, but it's a dynamic industry. It's one where if you're wanting to be challenged, you're going to have that opportunity every day.
Yeah,
it's been pretty special.
So obviously there's been a lot of regulation changes, particularly since 2008, and stuff like that. How is that from an employment standpoint? You must have had to ramp up, in the backside of the bank that we don't see for regulations, for again the more fraud with the the hackers and everything else.
And we do that in a lot of different places. As you know, Fifth Third is headquartered in Cincinnati.
Yes.
162-year-old bank. And we have a tremendous back office and operations team based there. But we have groups all over the country. And here locally in the Carolinas, we have a very robust compliance and financial crimes would be the title for the group. And all they do is look for ways to protect our customers and to protect the bank. And that's a growing area. It has to be. All of our competitors, it's a growing area. If you were a business that just think, most businesses can't afford to invest in that in a way to combat it 24/7, right? And so you're relying on your bank to do that. So those are areas that we have to spend a tremendous amount of our budget and looking to add all the time.
Yeah.
The amount of regulation coming out of 2008, there's been a lot. Some of it we think is challenging at times, but to be fair, some of it was probably necessary.
Sure.
And there's some good that comes out of that. And we have, I think across the industry, I think we've adapted well. And I would point to, frankly, the pandemic and what we've all experienced, and looking at how government stimulus was rolled out earlier this year.
Right.
It was unprecedented. We've never seen something roll out quite that fast.
Right.
And the rules were being written literally day by day as we were going along. And think how quickly that there was stimulus that was able to get out to support businesses and ultimately the employees and consumers. And those are the kind of things that I don't know that we could have done in 2008. And so there was a lot of investment that occurred in our industry since then that was pretty helpful this go around.
I would imagine, because whether it's checks showing up in your checking account to the PPP applications, what y'all had to do was pretty incredible just to respond to that, like you said, instantly.
And I would love to tell you that it was seamless. It wasn't. And, and I know that there were business owners all across the country dealing with their banks in addition to ours, and they were thinking, I need help. I need it quickly. What I can tell you is that my staff and my peers throughout the bank, we had folks that were working literally 24 hours a day. We had it staffed, so there were people working 24 hours a day. I had employees that were getting called in the wee hours of the morning And I know that was occurring because I had multiple calls that were coming in midnight,
Right.
1 a.m. Business owners that were just saying, "Look, is this going to happen? This is important. We need this." And I'm proud of how we responded as an industry. Certainly as a bank, and certainly within this region, there are institutions of higher education. There are cultural groups. There are organizations that are really helping keep people, propped up, and businesses that are providing jobs, and so we did that, and I think did it pretty well. And I have to say, this was a good example of where the government, the Fed, they really rolled up their sleeves and jumped in, and got things done for Americans everywhere. And it was there were a few weeks where I wasn't sure that anybody was getting sleep,
Right.
but I look back now and I'm pretty proud of that moment.
Yeah, like you said, it's a lot of stress, but it's worth it.
Yeah.
And seeing the impact that it had. And speaking of that, there's a lot of businesses that are under a lot of stress. Particularly in the retail side.
Sure.
Whether that's restaurants or people that are selling goods to people directly retail wise. How is that? How have y'all had to deal with those folks? What are you seeing from that segment right now?
It varies from market to market in terms of what you see. But look, clearly, a lot of businesses have been stressed and struggling. And, on one end of the spectrum, there are some that are thriving in these times, that are providing, goods and services that are critical as we're trying to prevent the spread of this virus, and as folks are, living their lives differently. And, I'll point to, certain retailers that had already started to migrate to more towards e-commerce and had a platform set up for that.
Right.
They're doing well.
Yeah.
Right. There was also retail that hadn't made that connection. And, we look at it today and folks say, oh, gosh, 2020 killed that business. The business was probably struggling well before 2020. But e-commerce and how we access retail has changed, right? Small businesses. If you're in the hospitality space, if restaurants, bars, it's tough. And we, like other banks in the industry, we immediately put into place programs and protocols to defer fees and payments and so forth, and to try to help through the uncertainty. I'm happy to say that most of our business owners and most of our consumers far exceeds in terms of expectations, have exited those programs. They're on more solid footing and feel good about that. But there are some that continue to need help. And look, I have to be honest, there are going to be some that don't make it. That were just undercapitalized to start with, or on their way to building a business, but it does happen.
Yeah, and it's tough. Certain businesses that are, like a restaurant. Gosh, I mean, what kind of operating capital they have? 2 weeks worth of operating capital in some cases.
It can be pretty light, and we've seen this. Think about this more from a commercial real estate perspective, but the small retailers, the neighborhood retailers that we all see. Your neighborhood dry cleaners and the nail salons and the small restaurant. We've probably done more in terms of ordering food from small restaurants in the last 6 months than ever before, just because we know how important it is.
Right.
To
you want them to be there when we come out of this.
Absolutely, you do. Look, nothing against the larger businesses. We support them too.
Yes.
We really, we all of us as consumers, that's important. But it's a small business owner that really gives a local community a feel.
Absolutely.
And you have to support them.
Right.
Going into those businesses, those are really entrepreneurial-minded people, but oftentimes they don't have the financial acumen or the access to capital that larger businesses might have, and they're just living on the edge. And this is a tough time. It's sad. But I'll tell you that the American public has a history of being resilient. Our economy has a history of being resilient. And I've been amazed at some of the stories where people have come up with a new way to serve. And you're like, wow, that makes a lot of sense.
Yep.
And they start to do pretty well.
Yeah, the creativity that we've seen out of folks is just amazing. Again, it's that American spirit that we can just find a way.
Right.
And we have a good friend of ours that has a restaurant in Waxhaw, and he was doing online wine tastings where people would swing by, pick up the wine, then they would go on a Zoom with the people in California to do a wine tasting.
I love it.
It was brilliant, finding ways that just really, you wanted to do everything you could to help support them in that.
I think everybody's tired of the world we're living in right now, and you're wanting to get back to something more normal. But one of the things that I admire is, even though we are needing to keep distance to be safe and to help one another, people still find a way to make it very personalized.
Right. Yeah.
And that has been that has really been a lot of fun to see.
Yeah. And to your point too, in what we do every day, trying to recruit companies in or work with our existing industries, we've had some that are suffering. And they're a product that Union County, we've done a lot of work to build this aerospace community here. So we have the largest aerospace cluster in the state. They're not doing great right now, and we're doing all we can to help support them. But then there's other companies that are just killing it. I mean, they're doing so well. So to your what you were mentioning about others, it's amazing sort of. You look at those that are suffering, you're trying to do what you can to help them, but others are so ingenious, so finding ways to make their even shift to making hand sanitizer in the early stages.
Right.
That kind of creativity was really.
We had a number of clients that were doing things just like that, and not only is it a way for them to keep their employees gainfully employed, right? Yeah. And that helps the entire community. But you have to appreciate as a citizen what they're doing to help all of us from a healthcare perspective, and we see a lot of that. But I will say, so you talk about aerospace. It's important that we all recognize what these businesses that are going to need. It's going to take years.
Yes.
For some of these businesses to recover. And we need to support them. We need to support them for the local economy and jobs. We need to support them because they provide a critical need in our economy. And don't want to lose sight of that even though we are all hoping for some near-term good news and improvement, there are going to be parts of this that stay with us for a couple of years. Whether
people believe it or not, the stimulus is coming out of the feds, even for larger companies like American Airlines, Charlotte Douglas. If we lose that hub status here, it's going to be really detrimental to our local economy.
We've long said, you go back 30 years more, really, but one of the big drivers of this vibrant economy we all get to participate in here is that airport.
Absolutely.
And the hub. There are a lot of people that had a vision many decades ago and executed on that, but we've got to take care of that.
Right. Absolutely. Again, things are different in 2020, so we have to find ways to support our local guys, big and small. So with technology, I'm curious, how do things like PayPal and other online transaction services and payment services affect your business? Have you had checking accounts have less transactions, things like that, or other online checking? Maybe the numbers don't. With online checking, I guess the numbers really don't matter.
No, actually, accounts have gone up.
Okay.
But we see consumers and businesses in general with larger cash balances trying to pay down debt in some cases. I think that there was a little bit of with the stimulus, there were folks that needed that. Right, they had to have that to get to make ends meet. There were also some that said, "I'm probably going to need it, but I'm going to stick it in the account and a savings account. We're going to see how things play out." And your question though about PayPal and just digital in general, there are a couple of different metrics that we measure around digital usage. We measure religiously, and all of them have gone up, year over year.
Yeah,
and that's not surprising. And this year where people have needed to practice social distancing, and they're looking to eliminate some of the physical contact. We would expect that, right? But what has been interesting is the mix. We're still building branches.
I was going to ask about that. Yeah,
we and you see it here in this region. We're building a lot of branches.
Mm-hmm.
We've opened up 2 branches in the last 2 weeks. We've got more coming.
Mm-hmm.
We're building them throughout the region, and people still want that. They
Mm-hmm.
want that. When banks originally started building branches, it was about convenience. When we started thinking about digital, it was about convenience.
Mm-hmm.
What we see is people want to have access to check a balance, to make a transaction, to do it themselves. They want to be able to do it 24 hours a day. They're going to use a digital platform. We see that our mobile transactions are going up. I know that they have in my household, right?
Right.
And so we see that. But at the same time, people still want a relationship.
Right.
And when they have a major transaction, when they are looking for something that's important in terms of advice, right?
Yeah.
They want to have a real person, and so we've seen both of those going on.
So that's a good segue. Speaking of relationships, so you guys really helped us throughout the years, particularly with Groundhog Day. What is your relationship with folks like us in the economic development community? How important are we to you? And clearly, you guys are important to us as we all do business together.
Extremely important. And look, we would love to have the relationship like we enjoy
Mm-hmm.
with everyone. Referrals are important in our business, but I'll tell you, we do what we do because we firmly believe that we have an obligation to help each community be better.
Mm-hmm.
And if we're not going to do that, why are we here?
Right.
And so economic development is a part of that. It helps all of us when there are new jobs created in an area and high-paying jobs. It helps in attracting more opportunities for whatever it may be, economic, cultural.
Mm-hmm.
What you do is critical to the growth of this community. And so what we try to share is if you need information, if you need access to people, if we can help, if we can share what it's like to work in this community, share ideas, those are all things that we're going to do and try to support you in your efforts to bring business here and commerce. At my institution at Fifth Third, we have a lot of individuals that serve on boards.
Yes.
in a variety of capacities, but we really get involved with economic development. And so what I would tell you is not only are you critical, even if we got nothing out of it, I would tell you that we all need what you do, and you guys in particular, Monroe and Union County, you've just done a phenomenal job.
Well, thank you again, man. If it weren't for you guys and having this wealth of financial institutions in the Charlotte region, particularly like a Fifth Third that tries to keep things still, at a personal level, I really, just really appreciate that. So, Lee, again, I appreciate you coming and speaking with us today. And it's great to see you moving up as such a big role, taking over both the Carolinas and Virginia, and still making time here for Union County.
Union County's home. It's important, and it's important for us to be involved wherever we are. But I'll tell you again, you guys are phenomenal to work with, and you got a great team. And Monroe and Union County has been really good to Fifth Third Bank.
Again, to everyone listening, thank you so much for all your support and following us. And if you don't, please subscribe. I think you'll find some pretty interesting information throughout our EDGEcasts. And again, one last thank you to Lee. Do appreciate you being here.